Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. Welcome to our session tonight on practicing mindfulness. We're going to start with just talking a little bit about what mindfulness is, and then we're going to engage in a practice. And this session will be interactive, so I want to encourage everybody, if you have comments or questions as we go through tonight's sessions, to put those into the comments, and I'll be able to respond to those questions live while we're together. So, um, about 23 years ago, I was teaching. I was in my sixth year of teaching and had recently become a father. And I had dealt with anxiety for a few years. And I was coaching in every season and really taking a lot on. And then becoming a father was, anybody who's a parent knows the first time you have a child, it's a huge adjustment and it's a lot of work. And I began feeling really overwhelmed, and the feeling chronically overwhelmed just really depleted me. And I started to feel this sense of chronic anxiety. And so I did what a lot of people in that situation do, and I sought therapy and medication to help me with it. Unfortunately, I met a therapist who introduced me to mindfulness. And at first, when I first heard about mindfulness, I thought I had all these connotations about it being this kind of woo woo thing. And I didn't see how it could possibly help. So um, I was kind of doubtful and skeptical and dismissive of it, and continued to go to therapy and decided to give mindfulness meditation a try. And so went upstairs and into a room in my house, shut off the lights, and tried to practice according to the instructions to focus on my breath, and just noticed myself feeling more anxious. So I quit, and I put it away and didn't come back to it for a while. But as I kept going to therapy and I kept reading more about mindfulness and how it's so effective in managing anxiety, I had this curiosity and I kept coming back to it. And what I realized that I was doing was I was approaching mindfulness the way I approach a lot of things in my life, which is to really have a strident, very like task oriented, goal oriented mindset. Like, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to get rid of this anxiety. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to all get better. And it's counterintuitive, but mindfulness actually works by not trying to make something happen, but actually by trying to sit with what is happening and to try to become, it's not even really a trying, it's just sitting with whatever is, and not trying to avoid it or grasp for anything. So we're not practicing aversion or a clinging or a grasping for anything. We're just sitting with what is. As a teacher and as a human being for years, I dealt with my anxiety and I dealt with my discomfort in life by trying to arrange everything externally to set it up so that I could feel better. And I also made myself really, really busy from sun up to sundown. Just make myself busy so that I can avoid feeling that, because if I'm paying attention to all these tasks and all these things that I have to do, whether it's coaching or certain hobbies or TV shows or books or whatever, then I don't really have to confront um, this anxiety that's in me. There's this something's going on within me and it's sending me a message. And so once I learned to just sit down and follow my breath and allow myself to feel anxious without trying to change anything, just keep coming back to the anchor of my breath. For me, what I noticed is as I started to practice regularly, um, some of that anxiety started to become unraveled. And I started to see and be able to deconstruct how it was my thoughts that were often leading to these, and rumination that was leading to these difficult emotions. And I didn't have a skillful way of dealing with that other than to try to avoid it, or eventually to drink, or to just do other types of coping skills that aren't very healthy. In the work that we do in education, we're very externally oriented. We want to help students. We want to solve problems for students. We have parents we have to deal with, administration that we have to deal with, colleagues that we have to deal with, society that we have to deal with. And then we come home, we have our own external world that we have to take care of, whether it's families or our home or chores or finances. We're constantly externally oriented, and we are so busy that um, we don't really take the time to investigate what's going on inside of us. And over time, I think some things can start to build up. And in the world of education advocacy, I think we get so focused on solving problems and the symptoms of a very toxic school system, and we don't take the time to really heal ourselves. We put our needs and our healing on the back burner. So I'm reading this book, and if you haven't had a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. It was recommended to me by Yelena Popovich. It's called The Four Pivots, and I just want to read to you what he talks about, because it's like he's my brother. It's like he's really he powerfully writes about this stuff. And what he says, activism and our efforts for collective power become like a substitute for turning inward, because turning inward is way too scary and messy. Dealing with our addictions, insecurities, and unresolved conflicts is way harder than making people aware of the dangers of climate change or fighting against racist policies. But when we don't turn inward to deal with our own stuff, we build up this false idea about power and ultimately build movements with wounded warriors. Build movements with wounded warriors. Our real power comes from the courage to deal with our fractured relationships, the vulnerability to acknowledge our hurt feelings, and the awareness to know when our ego shows up. So when I was dealing with all of this stress from teaching, and I found mindfulness, and I finally figured out kind of how to kind of uncouple it from my idea of trying to be good at it, or trying to be like attain some type of state of being. Like I thought I had to feel calm. I had to feel like relaxed when I was done, or I wasn't good at it. Once I let that go, the practice started to be more fruitful for me. And so back in 2011, 2012, I started to share this practice with educators around the country, and mostly in South Carolina. And I want to share the practice with you tonight. So, the first thing to know about mindfulness is the definition, which is that it is non judgmental awareness of what's happening now. So, I want you to all of you who are watching, just think about, like, what are you thinking about right now? Where is your attention? Where is your awareness? So, for me, I get in my head a lot. I start thinking about things that happened earlier in the day, or I think about things that I have to do tomorrow or later on in the day, or things that I'm worried about, things that I'm anxious about. And so I'm up here in my head and I'm ruminating. The neuroscience shows that when we do that, what we're doing is we're activating something called the default mode network. And there's a strong correlation between the activation of this default mode network and our feelings of anxiety or depression, because we have a tendency when we're ruminating to ruminate about what's wrong or what could go wrong. And we do this mental time travel as an adaptation. You know, we inherited this great capacity to remember what was wrong and envision what could go wrong as a survival mechanism, right? Because if you can remember the mistakes of the past and envision mistakes in the future, you're more likely to survive. And this creates this sort of negativity bias. So we pay attention to what's wrong in our environment. And so when we're sitting around, I want you just to notice it are the thoughts that you have when we do this practice, where do those thoughts go? And then can you let go of judgment around that? So that's the other part. Can you be here? Can you stop the time travel? Can you bring the awareness from that past and future um, mode of thinking? Can you bring it fully into the present moment? And then can you drop judgment about it? Can you drop judgment about what you're experiencing? Which is also very challenging. And what we do to cultivate that capacity to be mindful, one of the ways you can do it, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. One of the ways we can do that is to pay attention to our breath. And the reason for that is that the breath is always occurring in the present moment, so that if I can focus my awareness or attention onto the sensation of my breath as I inhale and I exhale, then I'm training my mind to focus on something that's happening now. It's always happening now. And it also gives me the ability to sort of see as thoughts start to arise, I start to notice, oh, I'm not paying attention to my breath. There's this thought that's come up. And then I can note the thought. Is that a past thought or is it a future thought? And then I can come back to the sensation of my breath and continue to follow the breath and the inhale and the exhale. And then inevitably, another thought comes up, just like another bird flies across the sky. Another thought comes up. I notice it, and then I make the note. Okay, that's a past thought or a future thought. And some of you may be wondering, well, what does this do? How does this help me? Well, what it's doing is it's helping you cultivate this capacity to be mindful. And when you are mindful, what you're doing is sort of opening up a space where this sort of peace can start to grow and emerge. It doesn't mean that when you practice that you will feel peaceful. It's just giving your brain this capacity to let go of this constant inner narration that we do and this constant negative thinking that we're addicted to, that we're habituated to, and allowing you to come back to the present moment right here and right now. And in the here and now, there may be something you're dealing with right now that needs your attention, and that's fine. But in many cases, the here and now is perfectly fine. What you're stressed about is something that you're thinking about from the past or you're worried about in the future. So this gives you like a muscle to notice during the day when your mind is doing this time traveling and to pull it back here to the present moment. And the research shows that when you build that muscle to come back to the present moment, it's strongly associated with improved mental health outcomes, better capacity to focus, um, less anxiety, um, more creativity. And it gets to what Ginwright's saying in this book, which is our need to turn inward. In the midst of all the chaos that's happening around us, it gives us, it makes ourselves a priority, this turning inward. So I'm inviting you tonight to turn inward with me. If you just practice, you can't do this wrong. Please don't try to strive. We're not trying to attain something. We're not trying to see special colors or float out of our chairs. All we're going to do is this very simple practice. So I want to invite you to do that with me now. So find a way to be comfortable in your chair and seated. You can lie down if you'd like to as well. And if it's comfortable for you, I want you to close your eyes. And if it's not, just find a spot in front of you to gaze at. And the first thing I want you to do is just notice gravity's impact on your body. Notice where your body is touching, maybe the chair or your feet are touching the floor. Notice where your arms are, and go from your head down to your toes and see if you notice any tension, and if you can just kind of breathe deeply and just let go of some of that tension. If your hands are clenched or your shoulders are tight, just to loosen up a little bit. If your feet are crossed, can you uncross them? And now, what I want you to do is notice that we can direct our attention anywhere. So I can tell you to direct your attention to your right hand. Just notice how you can bring your attention to all of your fingers in your hand, your right hand. And now I want you to bring your attention to the sounds that you hear. So maybe you hear this music in the background. Maybe in your home there is there's some sounds going on in your home. Maybe someone's cooking something, or there's a dog barking, or there's music. And I want you to just notice that we shifted from the right hand to the sound. And we had noticed how we felt in the chair, the gravity. And so now what we're going to do is take that awareness and shift it to our breath. And again, the breath is our anchor now for this practice because it's always occurring in the present moment. And I want you to just take some nice, deep, steady breaths and notice how the air feels when it comes in and how the air feels as it goes out. Notice the sensation of the breath. Inhale and exhale. The coolness of the air as it comes in, the warmth as it goes out. Notice how the chest expands and then contracts. Notice how the belly rises and falls. What we're doing here from a neuroscientific perspective is we're dampening that default mode network. And as we continue to keep coming back to our breath, we're letting go of the selfing regions of the brain that are constantly narrating the story of ourselves, and gently opening a space where maybe there's a feeling more of unity, more of like less about self and more about this connection that we feel. But again, we're not chasing that. We're just allowing whatever is to unfold to unfold. Just keep coming back to your breath. And what you're going to notice is the thoughts will come up, maybe judgments, past thoughts, future thoughts, judgments. Just notice them. They're not the enemy. This doesn't mean you're doing it incorrectly. You can't stop your thoughts by trying to stop your thoughts. What I want you to do is just notice them and then come back to your breath. Just follow that breath in. Now, notice how you can direct your breath. So you can tell yourself, I'm going to inhale now and exhale, or you can just allow it to do what it does the majority of the day and just allow that part of your brain, the autonomic nervous system, just to breathe for you. Just notice it. Where do you notice your breath the most? For me, it's right at the tip of my nose. Just go right there. Stay there. So when a thought does come up and you notice that you're not paying attention to your breath, you just smile and you say, "Oh, I was." The game here is to pay attention to my breath, and I kind of fell off the tightrope there. I kind of fell into my habitual thinking and was thinking about that thing again, whatever it is. No problem. I'm just get right back on the tightrope. I'm gonna get right back to my breath, and maybe I'll take 2 or 3 steps along this metaphorical tightrope, so 2 or 3 breaths, and then another thought's going to interrupt that focus. Totally fine. You just be aware of that, smile, and redirect gently back to your breath without judgment, without, "Oh man, I'm terrible at this. Can't do this. It's too hard." Just those are just more thoughts for you to notice. Just notice what thoughts come up. Just notice them. Not trying to push them away or stop them. So I'm going to be quiet for a couple of minutes and let you do that. Just try to stay focused on your breath. You notice you've strayed from that. Smile, gently return to your breath. Just keep coming back to your breath. And what I'd like you to do is, as you inhale, I want you to imagine that you are inhaling light, a sense of peace and stillness, equanimity, joy. And as you exhale, letting go of fear, anger, guilt, shame, resentment, worries. Breathe deeply and feel free to audibly exhale. whatever you're holding on to that's no longer serving you. I want you to envision letting it go with that strong exhale. Maybe there's this anchor towards somebody or feelings of guilt that you're carrying, somehow feeling inadequate, not good enough. Maybe there's something coming up that you're worried about, and you know that the worry's not going to change anything. As you exhale, just imagine dropping those things here and now with each exhale. Mm. And every inhale, you're just getting lighter. And whoever you are right now, right here, you're worthy of your own love and compassion. And so we're going to send love into our own hearts, compassion into our own hearts, and accept ourselves for who we are right now. No matter what's happened in our past, no matter how we feel inadequate or not good enough, you don't have to lose weight, gain weight, have a better body, more money, a bigger house, a nicer car, a better relationship. There's nothing that you need to get rid of or to obtain to finally make you worthy of love. You're worthy of that love right here and now, no matter what anyone says, including yourself. So see if you can give yourself some love. This person who's shown up tonight without conditions, can you be compassionate to that person? As if we can fill our own hearts with love and compassion. And as we move in the world, we have that love and compassion to give away to others. Continue to breathe deeply, slowly, and just notice how that feels. And whatever is coming up for you, if you're really uncomfortable, you don't have to keep going. You can stop at any time. But if this feels right to you, just continue. Just notice how the breath is always there. From the moment we're born, our breath has always been with us, and we can reorient towards that breath any time we want. Always happening now. Underneath the choppy surface of our lives that we tend to stay right there at the surface where the waves are crashing and there's choppiness all around us. But underneath that is this depth, is this stillness. like the ocean underneath the waves, and go down deep enough. There's stillness. And that stillness is accessible to us. In fact, that stillness is our natural default state. We just layer over it with our to-do lists and our agenda, with all of our thinking about the past, with our ruminating and worrying about the future. We layer over that stillness, that natural state, bliss that's underneath. Uh, And sometimes when we practice, it's not possible for us to get below that surface, and that's okay too. So, wherever you are, whether you're still at the surface where things are still stormy and choppy, or whether you found your way down into some stillness, know that that's perfectly fine. Whatever's coming up for you in this practice is perfectly fine. We're not trying to change it or resist it. We're just going to be with it in our breath. Take a few more deep breaths. And then when you're comfortable, you can open your eyes. And if you were practicing, what I'd like you to do in the chat, if you would, type in what you noticed, what came up for you, how did you feel, or what did you notice as you practice. If you put that in the chat, I want to thank um, Kay who said on point. So I'm going to wait for a few as those comments come in. One of the things that's really important is when we debrief these practices, um, sometimes what can happen is a couple of people are like, "Oh, I feel calm. I feel so much better. I feel so relaxed." And then inevitably, there's someone in the room who doesn't feel that way, and then they feel like they did it wrong, and they feel like there's something wrong with them. Like, why didn't I get relaxed? Why don't I feel calm? And it's really important for you to know that it's going to vary person to person and from practice to practice. There's times when I practice where I feel incredibly calm, and there's times when I practice where I don't, where I really just need to get outside and walk because I have this energy. Maybe there's some nervous energy, and I just need to get outside and move that energy around. That's where, like, to me, yoga can be really helpful, or taking a walk or mindful walking can be really helpful, is to start moving that energy around. So if you do notice that you're trying this practice where you're seated and you're calm, you're trying to be calm, or you're, focusing on your breath, and you have too much energy, I encourage you to try yoga. One of the things we've done is Alex Del Castillo has started a basic yoga series every Wednesday night. I think he's probably releasing one tomorrow. He does Wind Down Wednesday, and he does like about a 15-minute yoga session. So you can do those. Those are free, and those will be available on the Cool website. So I encourage you to try that, or to go to a local studio and give that a shot. So in this book, The Four Pivots, again, Wright says this. He says, "We've been socialized to focus on fixing problems and not creating entirely new possibilities. This involves transforming our addiction to frenzy, which is one toxic result of our capitalist culture, to an existence of calm well-being. We all know what it feels like to be addicted to frenzy, whether we love staying busy or have to hustle for survival. We're always busy, behind on pesky tasks, overcommitted, and in a rush to the next meeting or next event. This is because we say to ourselves, if I'm busy, I'm important and I matter. Like any addiction, however, this gratification obscures the core truth that our addiction to frenzy gets in the way of our healing and well being. A shift to well being means we reclaim our right to be well. We slow down the pace of our day. We say no more often and without guilt. And we take a nap every now and then. Really want to encourage everybody to read this book, Four Pivots. This is an excellent book. So we just did a practice. You can do this, anytime, every day. Maybe start off with 5 to 10 minutes and see how that works for you. It's just focusing on your breath. You notice the thought comes up, come back to your breath. If that feels good to you, then maybe you try to expand it to 10 to 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and so on. And consistency is key. If you can be consistent with the practice, you'll start to notice more of the benefits of the practice. So I want to take any questions. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions people have or any feedback that people have. While we're waiting on that, I do want to share a couple of things that are coming up related to this. One is tomorrow night, we're going to be with Rona Neely and Kiana Brown talking about healing trauma. And if you've not heard Rona speak before, she has a very powerful personal story of trauma she experienced in her life and how she was able to heal from that. She's an incredible speaker. She's a playwright, an educator, and then Kiana is her daughter, who is a behavioral health clinician who's going to help us tie in those stories and that about healing the trauma into and ground it in conceptual knowledge. So that's tomorrow night, and right here on Facebook or Twitter at 7:30 tomorrow night. If you want to go deeper into being trauma informed, we're going to have a workshop on July 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 at the SCEA headquarters in Columbia. Karen Beeman and Jennifer Dollar at Columbia College, they run their Master's in Trauma Informed Education program. Rona will be there that day as well to share her story. And we will do a full day. You'll get 4 hours of recertification credits and lunch. You can find more information about that on the Cool website, and I'll put those links up in a minute. We'll also have Educator Health and Wellness Day, brought to you by Circle of Rest, an organization run by Veronica Primus. We're going to do a full day of nutrition, mindfulness, yoga. I'll be leading some yoga sessions, and you can go to circleofrest.org. You can see that link at the bottom to register for that particular event. Couple of other things and I'm going to put some of the websites up here. So the Cool website, our Center for Educator Wellness and Learning, you can find all of the resources that we have at cool.us right there, cewl.us. And you'll see that our mission is to improve the inner and outer lives of educators. So this is what Sean's talking about in the 4 pivots, is we can't just as education advocates constantly be focused on externalities. We have to be able to balance that with the work we need to do inside. If we're always focused on solving everybody else's problems, solving the world's problems, we hollow ourselves out. It reminds me of that giving tree. We don't want to be the giving tree. We don't want to be all chopped down and used up. We want to invest in ourselves so that we can be for the world what the world needs us to be, but also what we need to be for ourselves. So I want to encourage everybody to go to the Cool website and check out those resources. One of the resources is a documentary I created called Rehumanizing School, about 2 schools that actually embed these practices into their school day. And you can watch that whole docuseries for free at cool.us/rehumanizing school. The trauma informed workshop that I mentioned, if you want to register for that, just go to cool.us/trauma. And the Educator Health and Wellness Day is, again, Circle of Rest with an E at the end of the rest.org. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. I'm not seeing any questions, but I will stick around if you have any. I do want to mention one last thing before we sign off. Um, I want to thank the NEA. The NEA gave us the GPS grant to fund the creation of our Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. So thankful to the National Education Association, the largest labor union in the country, for supporting the work that we're doing for educators. Um, and also the South Carolina Education Association, which is our state affiliate for the NEA, has also been so supportive of the work. You can join those organizations in one place at jointhescea.org. If you're a South Carolina teacher, just go to jointhescea.org or text the word join to 48744. You can join right now and not pay any dues until September. So you get basically the rest of May, June, July, August all for at no cost, and then your dues will pick up in September. So if you're interested, now's a great time to join the SCEA. I want to thank Yelena Popovich, who helped co-create the mindfulness retreats that we're doing. Both those mindfulness retreats are sold out for this summer. But if you are interested, just be on the lookout. At the beginning of each year, we typically launch registration for our educator mindfulness retreats. These are secular science-based retreats that we operate typically in the mountains of North Carolina for our South Carolina public school educators. And we do the practices we did tonight. We go more into depth about the practices we practice more in a really beautiful setting. But I want to thank Yelena for recommending this book and for co-creating that retreat experience for educators with us. And I want to thank you for practicing with us tonight. And I want to leave you with just a final thought. Hey, last night I was I've been aware of what's happening in with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and particularly what's happening in Gaza recently and what happened in Rafah. And it's really easy in the United States, where we're so far away from that, to think of it as this sort of abstract thing and to kind of shield ourselves from really, really allowing ourselves to feel what's going on there. And so last night I allowed myself to really to stop making it an abstract thing and to allowing myself to really feel that, feel the pain of watching children being killed. And it was really difficult. And I don't, obviously, it pales in comparison to what those people are experiencing, but I allowed myself to feel it. And I think it's important for us that we not numb ourselves to these things. And I think it's important not to stay focused on them all day long and to get mired in being depressed about it, and because that's not going to help solve the situation. But I do think it's important for us not to bury our heads in the sand and pretend like it's not happening, or not to allow ourselves to really fully appreciate some of the pain and suffering that other human beings are experiencing, because allowing ourselves to feel can motivate us to act. And I posted about this last night, and I realized that my post wouldn't do anything, and I don't want to sound like I'm just virtue signaling, just saying, oh, this is terrible, and not doing anything about it. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. I still not 100% sure what I can do about it, or how I can make the situation better. And I went back to this book, this Four Pivots book, and I realized that one of the things I can do is go inward and to try to cultivate inside me peace, so that I can bring that peace into my family, to my work, into the world when I interact with the mailman or the person, the cashier at the grocery store, or the stranger that walks by my house. And so So I thought, let's offer some mindfulness, do some practice. This is what I can offer. This is the healing that I can offer myself, and I can offer the world. And that was my um, response to feeling that pain last night. And I want to encourage you to take some time to allow yourself to feel, and not to make anybody make you feel stupid for having those feelings, or judged, and not to judge yourself for having those feelings. We need loving, caring, compassionate, feeling people in this world to counter the dysfunction and the horror that we're seeing. And the peace starts within. Peace in the world, and we want to see externally, starts with us. And Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see. You've got to take personally the change. It's a project within, and then you have the capacity to move in the world in ways that cultivate peace in others. So I hope that you'll take the practice that we did tonight, see how it impacts your day-to-day experience, and then if it does, share this resource and share these resources with other people. We need as many peace resources as we can get as a species. And my heart goes out to all the children and the parents of those children in Rafah and around the globe, really, struggling with just feeling, trying to feel safe and to have enough to eat and have medical care that they need. So, sending out wishes for peace and love to you and to everyone.